Okay, it is 6:15, so I suppose it is time to get into this. Hello, everyone, and thanks for coming to my session, Adoptable Goats Near Me, Developers Search History Saga, which is the new title, and not what I Googled the year I became a developer, which is the old title. It's off to a great start. So over the next, like 30 30 to 45 minutes or so, we're going to go on a little adventure through what is essentially the last 3 or 4 years of my life. We're going to have some highs, we're going to have some lows, and then we're going to have some highs again. So just, sit back and relax and enjoy the ride. Before I super duper get into it, I just want to give a quick shout out to my current employer, Nerdery. Nerdery is a digital business consultancy working at the leading edge of strategy, design, and technology to help clients evolve and thrive. Our whole saying is relentlessly invent a world that works better for all. That is like our mission, and it's truly like the culture of the company. I love it. I truly love it there. And we're not necessarily looking for Drupal talent right this second, but we are looking for people. So definitely head on over to our careers page and see if there's anything that floats your boat. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, who is this disembodied head that is currently saying words at me right now? Well, hi, I'm Kimana. My pronouns are she, her. And not only am I a disembodied head, I am a whole human person who lives in the OK state of Indiana and spends most of my time writing code or talking to lovely strangers such as yourselves. And some of you are not strangers, and I'm so happy that you're here. But I'm also happy that you're here if you are a stranger. So yeah, there's that. But alas, the code and talking to strangers thing was not always the case. That is my name. Our story begins in the year 2016. Ooh, think back to before it was like March and we couldn't leave our houses. Ooh. I was a grad student. I was a teaching artist. I was a curriculum designer back then. And this is back before I started speaking at conferences, back before I started working at companies that actually know what SEO is. At that time, this is more or less what you would get if you Googled my name. It's you see some interesting things like an IMDb page where I have one official credit for being a production assistant on a friend's short film. I have a Bandcamp page where you can listen to the music album that I recorded in my basement in order to fund my first professional trip abroad to teach in France. And that trip, after many a networking kind of 2 degrees of separation kind of thing, where I met people who knew people that were like running a program and doing all this stuff. Eventually, that first trip led to me signing a 2-year contract to help develop a music/English language curriculum for an international school in Beijing. So you might be wondering, how did I get year contract, like music teacher person, gonna go teach in Beijing, to speaking at a Drupal conference? Seems like a pretty big leap. You are not incorrect, person that is asking these questions at your screen. Well, oh boy, interesting thing to Google. Children's books about terminal illness. Well, friends, unfortunately, in May of 2016, my mother informed me that she had stage 4 ovarian cancer. And early one December morning, she passed away. At which point, I took custody of my then 9-year-old sister, who is turning 13 in like a couple of months, and I'm just not ready for it. At any rate, let's pause for a second. Why, you might be asking, did I lure you here with whimsy and talk of goats and then ambush you with such a heavy topic, like right off the bat? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, chronologically, it's the first thing that happened, and it's kind of what catalyzed this whole transition. Second, if you have cancer, things can really only get better from there. And last but most importantly, it kind of brings us to the thesis of this talk, which is that there is something to learn from every experience with an asterisk. Now, that asterisk is, I'm not saying to distill your experiences down into some succinct silver lining kind of like loopy font over like sunset stock images. I'm not saying that. Life is messy, sometimes painful, sometimes um, distressing, but often beautiful thing. And the human experience cannot always be summed up in words. What I am saying is that existence is a constant like feedback loop between our environment acting upon us and then us acting upon our environment in return. And learning is just the process of gathering information that that feedback cycle is giving us and asking ourselves, what do I know now that I did not know before? Is it okay to let a kid eat oatmeal for dinner? Friends, I had a lot of learning to do after that big event happened in my life. And now when I talk about learning, I just want to be clear, this can be like anything, truly. It can be practical information, like guardianship laws in the state of Indiana, or how to register a child for school. It can be skills like meal prepping or purchasing children's shoes so that they're like big enough to grow into, but not so big that they're falling off their feet. And this can even be just information you learn about yourself, like how you handle grief and what you can and cannot handle. Our pursuits of knowledge and the information we acquire can have, let's say, varying degrees of usefulness. And friends, learning is not limited to the things that have an obvious value. In my time upon this earth, I've spent many an hour absorbing information and cultivating skills that have no discernible point at the time. But information is useless until it's not useless. For example, when I was 16, I was very, very deep in a learn how to play all the instruments phase. And my father, seeing where this rabbit hole was taking me, decreed that I was not allowed to bring home an accordion. It was a rather draconian rule that I promptly broke because I am a rebel. And I spent the summer learning how to play the accordion, just teaching myself because the internet is a thing. And I just wanted to annoy my dad, as 16-year-olds tend to do. Fast forward 10 years or so, and I'm sitting at a staff meeting at an art school in Yangzhou, China, and we're planning this big Halloween show and trying to decide how we're going to handle the piano accompaniment for the choir, which is like, that was my whole thing, was the choir. That was the entire reason I was in China, was teaching these kids English through song. And all of a sudden, the conversation at the staff meeting, which was all happening in Mandarin, conversation stopped and everyone just like turned and looked at me. And then I like stopped and looked at my translator and she was like, so, do you play the accordion? Meanwhile, the principal of my school is just sitting at the head of the table pantomiming an accordion at me with a huge smile on her face. Needless to say, I ended up playing the accordion for this thing, and I did not expect to be in China playing the accordion for a children's choir when I made the very adult decision to annoy my father one California summer. So you don't know when information is going to be useful. I mean, sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just acquire it and it's there in your brain, and then you end up using it in a weird situation. So yeah, pictured is just like me with the offending accordion that I had to play, but also there's a picture, and I didn't have a picture of me playing the accordion at this Halloween show, but there's just a picture of me with my students in the Chinese newspaper, rocking out to probably some Ella Jenkins or something like that. So very, very, very fun experience, and also not the only time I was in the Chinese newspaper. Go figure. So yeah, That being, uh, I there are a couple things that I learned about myself. So, are coding boot camps legit? One very, very, very important thing that I learned was that after my mother's passing and me getting my sister, I quickly learned that I no longer had the capacity or desire to be responsible for molding like the minds of 30 plus children or like any of the other stressors that come with being a teacher. Unfortunately, teachers are not treated super well. But like as a whole in the United States, it's much easier to justify being a teacher abroad for sure. And so, because my background was all in education, that is basically all I had done up to this point. I needed to figure out something because I needed a job that had good benefits, decent job security, and like something that would just allow me to work without necessarily having to deal with people as like my primary job function. I just couldn't do it. Um, the whole experience, as I'm sure you could imagine, took a lot out of me. And I was just kind of running on survival mode, trying to create some kind of sustainable lifestyle so that I could um, you know, maintain my own like shaky mental health at the time and provide for my sister in a way that was like reliable and sustainable. So I always liked programming and I had made some like small video games here and there in the past. So I decided coding boot camp, that's the way to go. So let's talk about the learning process. If you're trying to pick up a new skill, there are tried and true methods that can help you do so, and different things that you can do in order to identify how you learn best as an individual. Things like knowing your learning style can help you figure out how you retain information better. Like if you learn better by reading or by seeing something demonstrated for you, or just like jumping in into the nitty gritty and doing it yourself. That being said, even if you tend to favor a particular method of delivery over another, it does pay to utilize several different methods in order to keep your brain on its little brain toes, so to speak. The more you generalize information, the easier it's going to be to recall that information in different contexts. Another thing that I found extremely helpful is to teach other people. We'll talk a little bit more a little bit later about the benefits that teaching others can bring. Like especially by doing this in a formal situation like a mentorship or something like that. But even something as simple as explaining what you learned to another person is super valuable. If you have a child handy, which I did, try breaking the concept down into its simplest forms such that a child can grasp the concept. I personally have found that if I can't explain a concept in its like little simplest, smallest pieces, if I can't explain it to a kid, without using too many technical words, then I don't have a deep enough understanding of the concept and it warrants revisiting. Also, the most valuable thing that a coding bootcamp can teach you is how to learn and how to learn fast. Part of the beauty of the coding bootcamp is that you're thrown into this like pressure cooker kind of environment that is theoretically designed to create the perfect combination of pressure and content so that there are stakes for you to learn, which like science has shown that adding stakes to your learning can help you increase your retention. Um, Ideally, the perfect combination is to provide those stakes without overloading you. In practice, however, betting your livelihood on your ability to acquire a new skill and find a job all before your savings run out can be a little bit stressful and maybe a little bit more stress than is conducive to learning. It's not a perfect process, and inevitably you're gonna trip up and hit a wall. You're gonna fail at some point. Hopefully, it's like smaller failures, right, and not some catastrophic nonsense. But failure is it's an important part of the process. Waiting for an angular promise. When we talk about failure, when I talk about failure and I think about failures in my life, I think about JavaScript and how now I'm a PHP developer and I haven't touched that stuff since 2017. Thank you. So failure provides context and discomfort provides a catalyst. Failure is largely inevitable, and a calculated degree of struggle and tension can do wonders to enhance the process of learning. Failure gives you feedback and enriches the knowledge you gain from any. Success brings brittle expertise. Failure makes your knowledge more robust and gives you exposure to the nuts and bolts and all the moving parts of the system. There's a famous Bruce Lee quote, and it goes something like, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." And that's because the man who has practiced the one kick 10,000 times means that, like, he knows how to kick a person that's very tall, and probably knows how to kick a person that's very short, and he probably knows how to like use that kick to kick a person that's moving. Um, oh, I will try to talk a little bit more slowly. It seems like the audio is cutting in and out, so I'll keep an eye on the chat and see if that will help. I've also adjusted my microphone, so let me know if I adjust some more stuff. But yeah, a person who has a robust knowledge of a specific thing knows what that thing is like in every state. Um, if I want to learn how to do migrations, uh, migrations are a notoriously tricky thing because they're very dependent on like data quality and there are so many external like factors that are beyond just like your migration configuration. And so being able to be familiar with all of the things that can break in a migration, if I know like 70% of the errors that you can get when trying to run migrations, right? Um, then I when I encounter those problems, I'll be able to fix them because I'll have already like gained that knowledge, right? Like I've already built up that skill. I know how to resolve the thing. I know that if it gives me this one particular error, it just means that I spelled the word delimiter wrong, and that I should just go back and look at my config. And that has happened so many times, and I'm aware of it. Uh, yeah. So yeah, like failing and messing up, super great because it gives you robust knowledge. It makes sure that you know the thing in the best of times and the worst of times. And honestly, the universe tends towards entropy and everything is chaos. And so like most of the time things are probably going to be like in a state of going to be like in varying degrees of being on fire. So yeah, failure, very important. Um, Also, pictured on my slide is a little diagram. On one axis, we have motivation and accountability, and on the other, we have psychological safety. So, the best learning occurs when we are motivated and held accountable, but also while we're being psychologically safe. Excuse me. So, when I refer to discomfort, I am referring to tension. I'm referring to that tension, that pressure that comes with motivation and accountability. Like I said, it's tension, it's pressure. There are stakes, there are consequences for you gaining this knowledge. Um, but these things aren't bad things. Um, Being held accountable is great because that means like things will get done, or they won't, and then you'll have consequences, right? But consequences and pressure, they're not bad. They're not bad words. They're good things. When you are safe, and safety refers to things like the capacity to learn, or like, which is to say, like, am I in like a current like am I healthy right now? Like, do I have the capacity to like devote energy to this particular task, right? So when I'm talking about safety, I'm referring to that kind of like capacity. If you have the space in order to like take on this new thing, if you are engaging in activity, is it harming you or is it helping you? So one way to kind of describe this is very like this is a situation where this is like pretty applicable. Like, imagine you're at your job and you need to learn, like, let's say my manager came up to me and was like, hey, we need you to learn how to do theming because we do. And um, I, they need, they need me to learn theming, and I need to do it in like a month. I have like a week to learn like basic theming, right? And uh, so yeah, oh no. Um, but I have a framework. I have accountability. There is someone that's going to be like looking sure that this thing is learned, like this goal is achieved. Um, but let's also say, and this is so true, just like where I work, and I'm just very, very, very happy and thankful for it, that I have plenty of support. I have a person that I can go to ask questions. I don't feel scared to be like, hey, so how do I declare like a JavaScript dependency in this thing again? Like, I have resources that I can go to, and I don't have to feel ashamed or scared that someone is going to punish me for exposing my ignorance, right? It's a very safe environment. But I have that motivation, I have that pressure, I have that accountability to learn this thing in a specific amount of time. That is the perfect learning zone where you have high accountability, but also high physical, psychological safety. Um, you can think of so there's another quadrant of high accountability, but low psychological safety. That's the anxiety zone. So let's say I still have a week to do this thing, but like I'm in an environment where like I can't ask anyone. If I say, hey, can you show me like what the best CSS selector is in this environment? I don't know. I'm just throwing out front end words at this point. But like, let's say I wanted to ask someone about like a front end thing, and they were like, oh, you should know that by now. How long have you been a developer? That's not going to make me feel safe. That's not safe, right? That's toxic. That's a toxic environment. So that kind of environment breeds apathy. Let's say um, they like I have a desire to like learn theming, but I don't really. I'm like not in an environment where I can like ask someone. I don't have the support. I don't really have the resources, and like no one's really like holding me accountable to do it, right? Like it's just whatever. Um, that's the apathy zone where like no one cares. Everything's just kind of like blah. And the comfort zone is like, uh, let's say my manager was like, hey, we need you to learn theming at some point this year, and I have all of these resources at my disposal, but no motivation to like learn this thing that I am not comfortable with. Uh, that's my comfort zone. I don't have to leave my comfort zone because no one's paying attention to me and no one's holding me accountable to learn this stuff. Um, that's not a great learning environment. Obviously, psychological safety is like terrific, and I truly hope that everyone can be in an environment where they are psychologically safe. But yeah, not a great learning zone. Not ideal to achieve optimum learning potential. So I finished my coding and I think it was like for my final presentation, and it was 16 weeks of like long days commuting back and forth to Chicago, staying late, taking like super late trains, getting home, like being in Chicago for like over 12 hours a day, coding for like 16 hours a day. Like it was a slog. It was a lot of work to get to that coding boot camp. And at the end of a lot of work, sometimes you just need a burrito. And so you look on the internet for a burrito near you. Um, and so you go and you get a burrito, and you're talking about your final project very excitedly because this is a thing that you've been working on, thing you've been like thinking about for weeks. Uh, so what happened with me? So I went to get my burrito and I was with a friend. We were talking about code stuff, and as we were walking out of the burrito restaurant, it was a freshie. It was not a great burrito. It was a very like hipster health food burrito. It didn't have yeah, but it was a burrito nonetheless. I enjoyed it. It's fine. It led me to where I am today. I'm very thankful for that burrito. But as I left this restaurant, after preparing my beloved burrito, um, some there was a man and he turned and he's like, "Hey, I heard you talking about coding. Are you at like a coding boot camp? Because I noticed your shirt has a logo on it. Um, are you at a coding boot camp? How do you like it?" And I'm like, "It is the best thing ever. It's so fun. I am enjoying it immensely because it's like learning a new language to talk to computers. And who doesn't want to talk to your computer beyond just like yelling at the screen, you know?" And just like being genuinely excited about yeah, just generally being excited about what I was doing because it was fun. It was a fun thing, and I was like happy to be doing it. And that man was like, "Hey, cool, yeah. When you finish your coding boot camp, I'm gonna interview you for a job. Okay, cool. Is that a thing that you would be down for?" And I was like, "Yeah, thanks. Please give me a job. What? Totally." Which brings me to my next point. Enthusiasm begets enthusiasm. Bothering people is super fun and also extremely productive. When you are very passionate about a thing, or like you want to learn a thing, and you find someone who is very passionate about that thing, they want to talk to you about that thing. If I want to like talk about config management, uh, I might go talk to Mike Nello or like Joe Purcell because they both have very strong opinions about config management and all this kind of stuff. It is you just you just find the people who want to talk about the things because like not everyone's gonna want to sit and like talk to someone about config management or like migrations or something for like 2 or 3 hours and whatever. It's like when you learn when you want to learn something, that's just a great thing to do. It's perfect. So just find people that are passionate about the things that you want to learn about and then bother them about it. And it's very, very like awesome in the Drupal community. Like it's like, it's so much easier in the Drupal community to do that than it is in like other communities. And it is like one thing that I'm so grateful for about this being like the environment that I landed in. Also, brings me to my next point. Mentoring works both ways. If you're excited about doing a thing, you don't have to like wherever you are in your learning journey, you know more than someone else knows. And not only that, if you've just like freshly learned a thing, that means you're closer to that subject matter than like an expert would be, because an expert hasn't had to like figure out, like if I'm an expert carpenter, I don't like need to know how to build an IKEA shelf. But if all like my friend wants to do is build an IKEA shelf so that they can put their books on, and I just built an IKEA shelf, I'm like, hey, on step 3, all the dowels are like in the bottom of the box. That's where the dowels are. Expert's not going to remember where the dowels are because the expert's off like using a planer or I don't know, chisels. That's something that woodworkers use probably, like a hammer. Yeah, I don't do that for a living. I do this, um, and so I'll help you find the dowels if that's a thing that I've like just learned, and you can help someone who is freshly like who has been like you've been where they are right now, and you've been there very recently. So that means like you know the tricks, and also just show up. Show up as like your full unadulterated self, because people like to be around you. You know, it's really delightful to be around people that are just like them, and showing up and just being in the right place at the right time around the right people has done so much more for like my career, being like the API docs and stuff. Um, and also just like for my life, because you know what, I've met some really great people just existing in the right rooms. Truly, I am so thankful for so many people. So yeah, show up because you just get to meet really cool people, and then also then you have more people to bother. It's great. It's all cyclical. It's all related. Um, so a person who has everything and wants nothing. I've only had 3 real goals in my life. I want to make cool stuff. I want to learn cool stuff, and I want to earn enough money that I can go to the grocery store and put whatever I want in the cart and then get to the checkout and not be worried about being able to pay for it. That's all I've ever wanted out of life. And a year or so into my career, I had that. So I set loftier goals. And I'm like, in 5 years, I'm going to be at this company. I'll be making this much. I'll have this much speaking experience. I'll have this many like open source contributions. I'm going to be this involved and blah, 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 blah. 2 years into my career, I had all that. Goals are hard. So I found myself in a bit of an existential crisis because it's like, what else could I possibly want? I'm done wanting things, right? Like I've achieved like a point in my life where things are good and I'm so grateful every single day to like wake up and have the life that I have. And I'm just real stoked about it. Uh, but like that's not conducive to like goal setting, right? Like part of for a person like me who is like just so fearful of stagnation, I can't just like be content with stuff. So I had to start thinking bigger. Because yeah, aside from just like wanting, the occasion buying Hawaiian shirts for me and my dogs to sit in the backyard and pretend we're at the beach, like I couldn't think of anything that I wanted. So what do I want in life? Like what do I want out of like society? I don't know. Gotta think big. Um, and I want things to be better for more people. It's just kind of that. Fun fact, did you know that we all have superpowers? And I'm not saying this just to be like, even though that like Fluffy is just like my default being. I'm not saying this to be Fluffy. We literally all have the power of mind control. Did you know that with just a few little words, I can alter the chemical composition of your body? Because I can do it. And with a small change like that, I can potentially trigger a small change in every single person that you interact with for like however long that thing lasts. Like impacting people positively, being kind to people has an effect on their brain chemistry. Uh, and when people are in a good mood and they're feeling positively, they radiate that to other people. Like good vibes are not just like a weird like cop out thing that you send to a person on Facebook or whatever. Like good vibes are like so real in life, at least in the context of like if you feel good, then you're good to other people, and then other people will feel good and be good to other people, and it's just this huge like ripple effect, and the sheer volume of it is so staggering if you like really think about it. But the opposite is also true. You can be awful to someone and then they will carry that awfulness and be awful to other people and spread negativity. I can't even say the word because positivity is where it's all at. But yeah, so we have to use our powers for good because we literally have superpowers, and it's for everyone's benefit. Also, as I get to do cooler and cooler things, like speak at DrupalCon, because like this is my life. I'm like astounded. Uh, I've made it largely my mission to just kind of like bring folks along for the ride. It's more fun that way, and it helps solve problems on both like a micro and macro level. I remember what it was like to be working several jobs and then just get home to like scrounge out some ramen and like shove it in my face so that I'm not hungry when I wake up the next morning so that I can go and work my 3 jobs again. The freedom of not having to recover from your workday after like working 8+ hours is something that everyone should be able to experience. There is a level of like freedom and stress freeness, and like there are things that I no longer have to think about or worry about now, having the privilege to be working in tech and like being in the environment that I am in, and like the weight that that has lifted off of my soul as an individual person. Like if 2016 me knew that this is how 2020 me, or yeah, 2020 me is gonna feel every day. It's like when I wake up, this is gonna be my life, and it's not gonna be so heavy. even with everything. Like it's it's amazing. So uh, like the more that I can bring that to other people, the more that I can like shove people into this terrific lifestyle, the better, because more people should be able to experience this. Um, and so, yeah, that's my new goal, uh, and it's an ongoing goal. So, yeah. So to just kind of sum up, how do you end a talk? Uh, well, I guess I'll just end it by saying I'm real thankful for being here. I have been described as an aggressively grateful person, and I think that's pretty apt. But yeah, I'm just like real excited. If there's stuff that if like if there's nothing that you take away from this talk, just like remember to be kind to people, uh, and you know it'll just make the world a better place. There's the math of, oh, this is a point that I forgot to make. The math of like just being a better human is so small. For example, this is apt in this particular environment because with all of the COVID stuff, like people's job security is kind of like wishy washy. If you get like a message from a recruiter, just be like, hey, I'm not interested, but I might know someone who is. And then you share that, and that takes 2 seconds, and it makes two people's lives much better. Very, very simple math. Uh, so, like little things like that of just like being better and like putting in like just the slightest effort to make someone else's day better. It just makes such a huge difference. And so that is how I'm going to end my talk. The end. I don't know if I have time for questions. I can't remember. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. This was very great, and y'all are so supportive and great in the chat, and I love it. But yeah, hero monitored. Are there question times? I don't know. Thank you for all the nice words that you're saying in chat. Thank you. This is a shirt. There's dinosaurs on my shirt, and that's why I bought it. Kimana has not adopted. Okay, I have 8 minutes for Q&A. Ask me questions. I have words that I can use to respond to those questions. I have not adopted any goats. I think when I move from this house in probably, I don't know, 10 years, the next place I'm going to move, I will be able to get goats, and I'll get a goat. I am in Griffith, Indiana, like Northwest Indiana. I'm closer to Chicago than I am to Indianapolis, if that like gives people a little bit more context. So it's a nice little area, kind of tucked away. But yeah, I live close enough to things that I don't feel like I live in the middle of nowhere, but far enough from things that I get to like live on an acre of land. So it's great. My favorite kind of goat. I used to have a favorite kind of goat. I like pygmy goats. But I don't think that's my actual favorite. I can't remember. I had to stop going down a rabbit hole and like figure out like what kind of goat is my favorite, because I was just spending like way too much time on the internet like looking at goats that I could potentially adopt. And I don't have good impulse control. I don't play I don't really play the accordion. I still have the accordion that I bought. It's still just like filling out my musical instrument hoard because I am a dragon. Um, I don't have. I have tried bagpipes before. I really, really want bagpipes, but I don't have any of my own. I think because my interests are kind of like wavy. I will before like the 20s are done. I'm probably gonna have bagpipes, so I'll keep you posted. Yeah. Any other questions? They can be ridiculous. Reed instruments are great. I am definitely like a brass kind of person. But I do play reed instruments. I have a harmonica. I have I have a clarinet. You know, they're fine. The qualities of a good burrito. Qualities of a good traditional burrito. Uh, like definitely tortilla integrity are good. Like that's essential. You have to have like a tortilla that is like structurally sound, so that you're not like everywhere. I'm partial to the bean burrito, or I'm partial to burritos with beans. I think a good burrito traditionally has beans. Um, like, but a good burrito does not need meat. Rice is optional. If you're going to include things like lettuce and tomatoes, you're going to need to like make sure that the ratio of lettuce and tomatoes uh, is appropriate for the amount of other fillings that are in there, because you don't. Yes, hot lettuce is wrong, and should be outlawed. I mean, unless you're into that, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna. If you want to eat hot lettuce, eat hot lettuce. Like that's you. I don't want hot lettuce in my burrito. That's fine. But but yeah. Uh, if you layer the burrito correctly, your lettuce won't get hot. It'll be like an acceptable temperature, and it'll be fine. Poblano and like Oaxaca cheese burritos. I'm not a vegetarian, but like, oof, oof, that's some very good eating. Some like fire roasted poblanos. Top five musical artists that are my favorites. Uh, Mitski. Uh, I'm always partial to Billy Joel. Milk Carton Kids. Uh, Run the Jewels. Um, um, who have I been listening to a lot? Uh, Julia Nunes is another great person. Yes. Um, Never met a burrito that was good with wet protein. Um, Not entirely sure with what wet protein means, but I think like there's a difference between like wet protein and juicy protein. Like a nice like good steak burrito will have juicy protein, but like wet protein, I feel like wet protein is like what you get when you have like a chicken burrito. If you have too much lettuce in your burrito, it's just like it is covered in like lettuce and tomato juice rather than like chicken juice. Yeah. Have I ever eaten a habanero pepper on its own? Yes, I have. I don't have like I have a pretty good threshold for spicy foods. I just don't like spicy foods. Um, in general, like there's a certain degree of spice that starts detracting from flavor. And obviously, like a habanero, if you're eating a habanero pepper by itself, then you're just doing it for the lulz. So yes, I have, but and it was painful, and I did not enjoy it. Um, but I have done it because I have a sister who is like real into internet challenges. We had like I know that you are an intelligent young woman, but please, I have to say this because I am the responsible adult in the room. Don't eat Tide Pods. Like that's a conversation I had, and she just looked at me like, "Leave my room, please," because how dare you even assume that I would do something like that? I'm just like I just had to say it because that's the thing to do. Um, but she is definitely not above like like hot pepper challenges and stuff like that. So yeah, uh, done that. Done. What is another thing? I don't know. Just she comes to me with like internet challenges, and I'm just like, I don't. I mean, I guess sure, this is quality time, right? Like we're having fun. This is fun. Is this what TikTok is? um, but yeah, that's you know going to happen. So we have like less than a minute left. I hope y'all enjoyed this discussion. I had a blast. This was really fun. Um, but yeah, have a good rest of your DrupalCon. Come to the community summit tomorrow. Doing that with Amy June and Kelly. And oh, gosh, why am I bad at names? No, Kelly Dassing. Uh, yeah, thanks. Uh, yeah, those things. Um, but yeah. Bye, friends.